Chapters 23 and 24 of Her Mother's Secret. This recording is in the public domain. Chapter 23. Mrs. Anglesea's Visit. It was late in the winter afternoon when Mr. and Mrs. Force, with their family and guest, reached Mondreer. They were met by attentive servants, who were eager to behold the returning bride and bridegroom, and looked astonished to see the bride return in charge of her parents, accompanied by a strange woman. "Where was the bridegroom?" was the question that their amazed faces put, though their tongues said nothing. An accident must have happened. His horses must have run away and upset the carriage. Maybe he might be brought home on a stretcher presently. They curbed their curiosity until they could interview the coachman, who must know all about it. They waited on the returning party in respectful silence. "Miss Meeke, my dear," said Mrs. Force, as they entered the hall, "will you oblige me and take charge of our guest, and show her into the best spare room, where there is a fire, and attend to her comfort? Take Wynnette with you. You see, dear, that I have to give my whole care to my poor child here. Mrs. Anglesea, I am sure you will excuse me for a little while?" "Oh, go along with you, and look after the gal. She's 'most dead. How she can take on so after that beats me. Lord, there's no accounting for gals' whims. But there, go along with her. Never mind me. I can make myself at home anywheres," exclaimed the visitor, beginning to pull off her overshoes then and there. Miss Meeke and Wynnette invited and conducted her upstairs to the best bedchamber, situated in front of the house, with windows overlooking the bay, furnished with maple wood and blue chintz, and warmed by a fine, open wood fire. Wynnette drew an armchair to the fire, and made the panting guest sit down in it, while Miss Meeke looked to the washstand, to see if there were water and towels enough. "I have to get one of you young ones to lend me the loan of a hairbrush and comb, for I didn't bring any. If I had knowed I was coming, I'd 'a' done it. But, Lord, no one ever knows. And there, I have just remembered as I never took leave of that good soul, Miss Sibby. And whatever will she think of me, a goin' off at a tangent in this onthankful manner?" meandered the woman, talking partly to her attendants and partly to herself. "Oh, she will say you were so flambergasted by the rumpus I mean confused and excited by the occasion that you forgot to bid her good by," said Wynnette. "You will find new combs and hairbrushes, and everything else you will require, on the dressing table, or on the washstand," Miss Meeke explained. While the governess and her pupil were doing all they could to make the stranger guest comfortable in the spare room, Mrs. Force, assisted by her woman Luce, and followed by Elva, supported her helpless daughter up to Odalite's own room, where they undressed and put her to bed. Odalite soon fell into a deep sleep. Her mother sat down by her bed to watch, and told Elva to go downstairs and help to entertain their guest, and told Luce to leave the room, but to remain within call. When the lady was left alone with her sleeping child, and had time to collect her thoughts, she was divided between a sense of relief in her daughter's unexpected rescue from the martyrdom of an abhorrent marriage, and terror as to what the arch enemy and artful plotter might do next. Would he pocket his shame and go back to his own land? Would he linger in the neighborhood, stubborn, defiant, and aggressive, as he had shown himself in the church? Above all, would he attempt to see her again, to get any other advantage over her from the power he possessed in the knowledge of her secret? He could not insist on any marital rights over Odalite. That was quite certain now. Would he demand money as the price of his silence? If so, he should have all the money she could command of her own by the sale of her jewels, laces, and India shawls, on condition that he should leave the country. And still her thoughts reverted to the great relief that she felt in the fact that he could no longer persecute Odalite. The proof of his former marriage in the substantial presence of his living wife forbade that. This latter suggested another question. What under heaven could have caused Angus Anglesea, certainly a gentleman by birth and position, certainly a man of cultivated mind, fastidious tastes, and of refined manners, except when evil passions got the mastery and turned him, for the time, into a ruffian, what could have induced such a man to marry such a woman as she who claimed to be his wife? In the midst of these speculations the door opened silently, and Abel Force entered the room on tiptoes, and silently signaled his wife to come and speak to him. She arose and went to meet him. How is Odalite?" "She is sound asleep, so sound that you need not fear to wake her," replied the lady. "But is that sleep well? She was very lethargic in the church, I noticed. Had I not better send for a physician?" "No, no, certainly not. Her sleep is well. It is the effect of an opiate I gave her. The best treatment under the circumstances. Do not feel the least anxious as to present or future consequences of this day's events. Believe me, our child will never break her heart for the loss of that unmasked villain." "And yet he was a friend of yours, Elfrida?" "Never! I told you so from the beginning of your acquaintance with him. I explained that he was my brother's friend, and that they were brother officers in the Indian campaign. I distinctly assured you that he was not my friend." "Ah! I remember. Then it was his manner that misled me. Well, he is gone. Let him go. I hope he will soon take his departure for his own country. Great Heaven! Suppose the criminal marriage had been consummated before the discovery of the living wife had been made! Elfrida, I should have killed that man. Oh, my dear, it is not only the murderers who are criminally capable of murder." "Do not talk so, Abel. The temptation was saved you." "By a hair's breadth only. It was a narrow escape." "Oh, no. The woman, I hear, had been in the neighborhood for a week past, watching him, no doubt." "Then why, in the name of decency, did she not make herself and her claims known to us sooner, and here, at the house?" "I do not know, unless she wished to put him to a public shame. She says she has a great deal to tell us. Perhaps she will tell us that." "I shall ask for an explanation of that, at least. Well, my dear, I will leave you with our child. You will come down as soon as you can." "I will join you at dinner," said the lady. And, as her husband left the room, she went and resumed her seat by her daughter's bedside. Wynnette and Elva, who had not at all changed their pretty bridesmaid dresses of cream white cashmere, trimmed with satin, were seated at the piano in the drawing room, playing a duet for the entertainment of Mrs. Anglesea, who sat in a big, blue velvet rocker, and applauded whenever the music pleased her. Miss Meeke had taken temporary charge of household affairs, and was out advising the servants. The truth about the absence of the bridegroom had to be told, some time or other, and so she told them then and there of the interrupted wedding, and of the identity of their new guest as the lawful wife of Col. Anglesea. Though the faithful negroes were full of wrath against the impostor, and would have liked to hang him on a tree until dead, yet, upon the whole, they were glad of what had happened. They had never liked the "furriner," as they called Col. Anglesea, and they felt secretly delighted that he was not to marry their young mistress, to take her away to "furrin parts." "To go to want to marry our young mistress, and he wid another wife livin'! Oh, de wickedness of mankind! But it is a habit dey gibs deirselves, chillen. 'Deed it is! Nuffin 'tall but a habit dey gibs deirselves," said Aunt Lucy, dogmatically. "But 'bout de deception, miss?" inquired the cook. "There will be no reception. The minister was requested to announce from the chancel that there could be none," replied the young lady. "Lor', Lor', Lor'! And all dem good tings to eat goin' to waste!" deplored the cook. "They need not. Cakes and sweetmeats and candies will keep until they are consumed." "Yes, miss. But de chicken sallet and de patty de four craws, dey won't keep till to morrow, not even on ice." "I suppose, then, that what cannot be consumed to day must be lost. I see no remedy." "And whay we gwine to set de dinner table, when de dinin' room is all took up 'long ob de wedding feast spread out on dat yonder 'stension table? We ain't got time to take all de fings offen dat." "No, indeed, you have not. You had better lock up the dining room just as it stands, to wait your mistress's orders, and set the table in the sitting room." CHAPTER XXIV THE FORSAKEN WIFE'S STORY. Having given her last instructions, Miss Meeke returned to the drawing room, where she found the new guest, extended at length on the blue velvet sofa, with her chubby hands clasped under her head on one side, and her stoutly booted feet elevated on the other. She was fast asleep, and snoring sonorously. Wynnette and Elva were standing gazing on her, with their faces full of guilty fear. "What is the matter here?" inquired the governess. "Oh, Miss Meeke!" exclaimed Wynnette. "I'm afraid she's half seas over. I mean Elva, do you tell me what all this is, if you know," said the governess, seeing that Wynnette had broken down in her attempt to explain. "Oh, Miss Meeke," said Elva, taking up the thread of the discourse, When we finished playing the duet, she there on the sofa asked for a glass of wine, and Wynnette and I went ourselves to get it for her, and we went into the dining room, where the beautiful wedding table is set out, and all the wines in cut glass decanters on the sideboard, and I am afraid I know we made a mistake and poured out a claret glass of cognac brandy and brought it to her." "And did she drink it?" "Every drop! And she said it was proof brandy, and worth a bottle of common stuff. And then she talked a good deal, and then she lay down on the sofa and went to sleep." "I am very sorry. My dears, you should never meddle with the decanters. You should have called Jacob, who would have known what to bring." "But Jake was not in reach. He was away down in the stable yard, talking to a crowd of grooms and other men and boys. I saw him through the back windows, and I knew he was telling them all about what happened in the church. Oh, Miss Meeke, do you think she will die? Oh, just hear how she snores! Will she wake up in fits?" cried Elva, in fright. "No, my dear," said the governess, looking attentively upon the woman. "No, don't be alarmed. I think her condition is as much the effect of reaction from fatigue and excitement as of the brandy. Besides, she is wearing a tight dress, and lying in a cramped position, all of which obstructs her breathing. We must wake her up." But at this moment Mr. Force and Leonidas came in, talking eagerly, and their abrupt entrance startled the woman out of her slumber. She sat up, rubbed her eyes, yawned loudly, asked where she was, and expressed a suspicion that she had been asleep. Wynnette gave her Mrs. Force's bottle of sal ammonia, that stood, by chance, on the sofa table. Elva ran out and brought a glass of ice water. She sniffed the salts strongly, with an "Ah! Ah! That's the sort!" She drank the water audibly, and handed back the goblet, with a loudly drawn breath, and an "Ah! Ah! Lord, Lord, what a day this has been!" "I hope you have rested, ma'am," said Mr. Force, politely. "Oh, yes, I'm all right now, thanky. Where's your old 'oman and the gal? I hope they have taken no harm from that there rumpus." "None whatever. Mrs. Force will be down in a few moments." The lady entered the room while he was speaking. She still wore the rich purple velvet dress that she had put on for the wedding. In fact, no one had made any change in their costumes, except to lay off bonnets, wraps and gloves. Dinner was now announced. Mr. Force gave the stranger his arm and led the way to the dining room, followed by the other members of the party. As the dinner went on, each member of the family felt more and more wonder that Col. Anglesea should ever have thought of marrying the woman who claimed him. Handsome, good humored and sensible she certainly was, but she talked and laughed loudly, called the master and mistress of the house the old man and the old 'oman, loudly praised the dishes she preferred, asking to be helped to them 3 or 4 times, ate with her knife, dipping the same knife in the salt cellar or the butter dish, and, indeed, she shocked good taste in many ways. How, indeed, could Angus Anglesea ever have married such a woman? It was not until after tea, when the family party were assembled in the drawing room, and Mrs. Force had sent away the 2 little girls, in charge of their governess, that the story of that marriage was told. There were present Mr. and Mrs. Force, Leonidas, and Mrs. Anglesea. They were gathered around the open grate, where a glowing fire of sea coal burned. "Yes," said the woman, putting her feet upon the low brass fender, and drawing up the edge of her dress, to toast her ankles. "This is just as good a time to tell you all about it as any other, now that the young uns are gone to roost. I hate to talk about the wickedness of the world before the young uns. They will find it out quick enough for themselves, poor things. Well, you want to know what in the name o' sense ever possessed me to marry that beat, don't you?" she inquired of Mrs. Force. It was not exactly the way in which the lady had put the question of the marriage to herself, but she bowed her head in assent. "Well, then, my late husband, Zeb Wright, made a big fortune in the mines. Him and me was one of the very first that went out to the diggings. And he made his big pile by real hard hand work, and by none o' your blasting and crushing and lifting machines and things. And the year he died he had put away $123,450 in the Californy Miners' Saving Bank. And we might 'a' retired on that, but we was still in the prime o' life, neither of us 40 years old then, and I'm not now, and so he said we could go on for another 10 year, and make another 100,000, and then go back to the East and live offen it in grand style. But, Lord, who can tell what a day may bring forth, let alone 10 year?" one autumn day he came home to me in our shanty at Wild Cats' Gulch, with a hard chill, and in 2 hours, just as the turn of the cold fit into the hot one, he had a little spasm and went right off. Well, I was all alone, having of no child'n, but the boys they was very good to me, and seen to the funeral, and all that. And after it was all over, I stayed on in the shanty, partly because I hated to leave it, and partly because the equinoctial storms had riz the rivers and carried away the bridges, and made the travel between Wild Cats and St. Sebastian awful hard and risky. In that first year of my widdyhood I had a heap of offers from one and another of the boys, for there wa'n't many wimmen there, but I snubbed 'em all. It wasn't till the next summer that I went to St. Sebastian to see about drawing out my money, or a part of it, to go East. Well, there at the Hidalgo Inn I met with Col. Anglesea, and sorter got acquainted 'long of him. He had been out on the plains with a lot of English officers, a hunting of the buffalo, or pretending to do it, and now he was on his way home, so he said, gwine to sail from 'Frisco to York, and then to Liverpool. He said as he had inwested $500,000 of money in Californy. Lord sakes, how that man lied! Then, like a plagued fool as I was, with nobody to advise me, don't tell me about wimmen having any sense! They always get coaxed or swindled or scared out of their money. I goes and tells that blamed beat and cheat about my $123,450, and asks his opinion how I ought to inwest it. And he tells me cock and bull stories about companies, and shares, and per cents, and things that I knew nothing about, and he wanted me to give him the money to inwest for me, and save me the trouble and 'noyance. But I wasn't quite such a donkey as that, neither. I just wouldn't trust him with a dollar. No more would I sign any paper that he brought me. No, not one. Yet I did like the insinuating creetur to such an extent, even then, that I couldn't bear to hurt his feelings by seeming to distrust him, and so I always made some excuse for not doing what he recommended. After that he changed his course, and began to make love to me. Lord, how that man could make love! Ask that gal of your'n. I reckon she could tell you. Well, I don't know how it was to this day. I must 'a' been bewitched. But I was such a consarned fool that I went and married him. And 2 weeks after that he levanted, with all my money. Leastways, all to a trifle of about $20, which I had about me in my room, and which was just enough to take me back to Wild Cats' Gulch. And if ever you did see a chop-fallen cuss going home, that was me. The hotel people had even kept my boxes for my board. Oh, but the boys was mad when they heard all about it. They was 'most as mad with me for being such a fool as they was with him for robbing me. But they put me up to following of him, telling me if any one could run a man to earth it would be an injured woman. And they put up a pile for me, and took my boxes out of quod at the Hidalgo, and started me on my way to 'Frisco, for I knowed he had made for that port. And there I found out he had sailed in the Egglia for New Orleans, and I took the first steamer to that port. There I learned that he had stopped at the St. Charles Hotel for a few days, and had then gone to Savannah. Lord, what a chase I had! From Savannah to Mobile, from Mobile to Havana, from Havana back to St. Francisco, and there I heard that he had sailed for Baltimore. Well, I took passage on the Bluebird, bound for Baltimore. There I made the acquaintance of young Roland Bayard, the third mate, who was very good to me. Well, we got to be such good friends that at last, one day, I up and told him all my troubles. And when he heard the name of my rascally husband, "Anglesea," says he. "Angus Anglesea," says he. "Why, that's the man who is staying with a neighbor of ours down in Maryland. My old aunt wrote to me about him in the very last letter which met me at 'Frisco." And he took the letter out of his pocket and gave it to me to read. And sure as a gun, it was my fine colonel as the old aunty was writing about. And I said to the young man as I must have been put on a false scent to be running about among Southern ports when he had gone North. And he said there was no doubt in the world that the man himself had put me on the false scent. Whether or no that was so, I thought it was very providential I had fell in 'long o' this young mate, and we got to be fast friends. And we laid a plot that we should say nothing about it, and he would take me to his auntie's, and I should go by the name of my first husband, Wright, and lay low and say nothing, for fear my colonel should find me out and run away again before I could nab him. Well, we reached Baltimore early in this month, you know, and young Bayard got leave and came home, fetching me along of him. And the fust news we heard, when we got here, was as my fine gentleman was gwine to be married to a fine heiress. But Roland and I, we winked at each other, and never let on to a single soul as I was the colonel's lawful wife. We thought we'd just have lots of fun out of the game, anyways, and wait till the wedding day, when all the people should be in the church, and then, in the midst of his triumph, pull him down and disgrace him before all the world. Lord, we didn't mean to wait for the last minute, when the ceremony was over, but to stop it at the very beginning, where the parson asks 'if any one knows just cause,' you know. But that consarned beast of an old mule of Miss Sibby's wouldn't make time. There, that's all." At this moment a note was brought in and handed to Mrs. Force. She opened it, and read: "Notwithstanding all seeming proof, I solemnly swear to you that I never was married to the woman right; that I was free to contract matrimony when I married your daughter; and that she is my lawful wife. I must see you alone, when I will prove this to your satisfaction. A. A." End of chapter 24.